Good evening. My name is Kelly Ackroyd, and I would like to welcome you to Eat Right for Your Metabolic Type. And the reason that I'm doing this hangout tonight is because I recently read a book, and actually, here it is on my Kindle, i.e., my iPad. Oh, I don't know if you can see it. It's The Hunter Farmer Diet Solution, and it's by a Dr. Mark Laponis. And I am going to highly suggest that you get the book. It was awesome. I actually had gotten the book right before I left to go on vacation. I recently went on a 7-day cruise, and before, in my wild wisdom, right before I went on the cruise, I'd heard about this book and I had got it and I started reading it, and it made so much sense to me. The good news is that when I came home from my cruise after eating lots and lots of really super delicious food for 7 days and 7 nights, I came home and I had only gained 1.5 pounds, which to me was kind of miraculous. And I hadn't done anything special other than I started eating according to the way that Dr. Laponis teaches in this book. So I'm going to give you like a quick synopsis of the book so you can kind of see for yourself if it's something that you'd like to delve into deeper. So the first thing is Dr. Laponis, the whole book is based on the theory that man was originally hunters, right? Originally, we traveled around in our little groups and we would kill whatever we could kill, and then we would eat, right? And then after we were done eating, we would continue to travel on to wherever we could find the next food. So hunters weren't really just hunters per se, but they were hunters and gatherers. So, like they might gather something that they could easily carry with them along the way, but they were sometimes going very long distances in between of finding their food sources. So the hunters are the first group. And then he goes on to explain that as mankind evolved, apparently the lazy ones, which I kiddingly call them the lazy ones. He doesn't call them that. But the lazy ones decided that all of this walking is just not for me. Can't we just like settle down and maybe figure out how to grow something? And that's where the farmers entered. Okay, obviously you can tell that I'm the farmer type. So, because I can definitely resonate with them. But anyway, the farmers did exactly that. They planted and they began growing food. Now, did you know that the first crop that man ever grew was actually grain? So the farmer's natural food to eat is grains, just like the hunter's natural food group to eat is protein. Okay, so farmers would grow things, and farmers would, because they had so much food right there at their disposal, they became kind of grazers. When they would feel a little hunger, they'd just grab a little something and take a nibble, maybe grab a few berries, grab a little, wheat, crack it up, or whatever. So they became very much like grazers. But think about the hunter. The hunters were not grazers. The hunters actually would sometimes go 2-3 days before eating anything again after gorging on a great big meal. So there's a couple of things that come into play here. And one of the things that Dr. Laponis had found out and talked about in the book was that hunters naturally have a higher blood sugar level. And because of that, they're a little bit more prone towards things like diabetes, heart issues, like that. The farmers, on the other hand, have naturally much lower blood sugar. Okay, so they don't necessarily have things like diabetes or heart disease, and they actually, according to Dr. Laponis, have a little bit longer of a lifespan, and so they suffer more with things that are considered old age issues or degenerative issues like cancer um, or bone degeneration, things like that. So back to the story. The hunters, if you think about a hunter is not naturally as hungry because their blood sugar stays a little bit higher, so they're not naturally, hypoglycemic people. When their blood sugar starts to fall out, whoosh, they crash and they have to have something. But the hunters are not necessarily prone in that way. It's funny because Dr. Laponis talks in the book about you can always tell a hunter, because a hunter at a party, they'll have one alcoholic beverage and then immediately they want another alcoholic beverage. Whereas at a party, if you give a farmer a alcoholic beverage, they'll drink their alcoholic beverage and then they want a little something to eat. So at a party, you can always tell the hunters from the farmers because the hunters are gathered over at the bar and the farmers are gathered over at the hors d'oeuvres, which is very true because the farmers are naturally have a tendency towards hypoglycemia, right? So when their blood sugar starts to drop out, nothing in their world is good anymore, okay? And I know this as a fact because when I was young, I was diagnosed with hypoglycemia and it was quite severe. And over the years, I actually learned to take care of it simply by never going longer than 3 to 4 hours without putting food into my mouth. And and as a farmer, when I was very young and very thin, I never really ate meals. But what I would do is when I would start feeling my blood, like I could tell, ooh, I'm feeling a little hungry, and I knew, ooh, I better put something in because I don't want to have a, brown out with my sugar, right? So I would just grab a little handful of something. It might have even been I would grab an apple, or I'd grab a piece of toast with a little bit of peanut butter on it, or I'd grab just something little. And just that little something in my belly would pull that blood sugar up enough where I could very easily go another 3 or 4 hours without having to eat anything. Okay, so the way that a farmer naturally eats is very small meals very frequently. So they might eat every 3 to 4 hours, and their diet consists of grains and fruits and vegetables, some protein, and their danger food is fat. So farmers do very well on a low fat diet. Now, our hunters, on the other hand, the hunters are not naturally hungry. Okay, so in the morning, a farmer wakes up and they're like, oh, I'm going to have my coffee and a piece of toast or my oatmeal or like you wake up hungry. It's funny because when I was younger, the girls that I worked with used to always laugh, and like right after we'd finish our mid-morning snack, I'd be like, so what are we going to have for lunch today? Like I was always thinking about, and that's very farmer-like. Like farmers have a natural appetite because they know that they need to be eating a little bit of something every 3 to 4 hours. Hunters are not like that. Hunters can go a very long time without food. They don't necessarily wake up hungry at all. And when they are not nibblers at all. When a hunter sits down, a hunter wants a meal. They want the appetizer, the salad, the entree, and the dessert all in one sitting. They like big meals that will fill them and then they don't need anything again for another sometimes 8, 10, 12 hours. So when a hunter starts eating the way that they're told they're supposed to eat, oh, you shouldn't go that long without food and all of that kind of stuff, that would be fine if you were a farmer, but you're not. So the rule of thumb for a hunter is only eat when you're hungry. Don't eat when you're not hungry, even though you think you should put a little something in there. Like you might want to grab whatever, a little handful of berries or something, but typically hunters are, they have a much higher thirst than the farmers do. So usually if a hunter is doing a good job of staying hydrated with water throughout the day, then their hunger will really, really stay at bay, and they'll be eating minimally, like a very few times a day, once or twice a day, they'll have a big meal. Now, that's not going to work for a farmer. Farmers are going to have, 4, 5, maybe even 6 little things all throughout the day. Now, what's very interesting is, you would think, or you might hypothesize that if you were eating 5 or 6 times a day, oh my goodness, I'm going to like just gain all this weight. But I will tell you, I have been doing this now for 2 or 3 weeks. One of those weeks I was on a cruise, and the other 2 weeks I've just been, back in my regular daily grind. And it's very freeing because when I feel a little bit of hunger, I might grab, a piece of Ezekiel bread, or I might grab an apple or a hard-boiled egg, or a little homemade guacamole with some carrots, or whatever. But just literally a handful of food is all I need. And if I were to take the 5 or 6 handfuls of food that I've eaten throughout the day, it barely makes up one full plate of food. Whereas when I was attempting to not eat when I was hungry and hold out and only eat like 2 or 3 meals a day, by the time I would sit down to eat that meal, I would be so starving because my blood sugar would have dropped out so low that I'd just be ravenous, and I'd be eating and eating and eating and eating a plate and a half, 2 plates or more of food. So the secret for a farmer is to eat small meals, eat them often, stay away from fats, so adhere to a low fat diet, and to eat slowly and chew thoroughly. Okay, and that's really, really important too. Because if you're taking a handful of food and you're throwing it in your mouth and you're chewing it once or twice and swallowing it, your two things is going to happen. First of all, your body is not going to be able to break down those grains effectively because the grains begin to digest in your mouth. And the second thing is it's going down so fast that the brain is not having time to recognize, oh, food is here, allow it to be absorbed into the bloodstream so that the blood sugar levels can start rising again, and the body can say, ah, I'm fine, I don't need anything more. Okay, so with the farmers, eating slowly, chewing thoroughly is a big part of it. Now, for the hunters, you guys only eat when you're hungry, and make sure you keep yourselves hydrated. Plenty of water, good purified water, and actually in the book he says tea and even coffee is fine for the hunters. And for you guys, you can eat a protein dense diet, but your what your poison is sugar and carbohydrates. Not your fruits and vegetables, those are fine, but your breads, your pastas, anything that breaks down into sugar. Remember, you guys have the higher blood sugar level normally, so you don't need those things that break down into sugar. As a matter of fact, it's when you eat those and your body doesn't need them that actually throws you into the diabetic ranges. Okay? So, if after listening to this you are not really quite sure, so what am I? Am I a farmer or am I a hunter? There is a very easy way for you to discern which one you are. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go grab a tape measure, and you're going to want to measure your waist at the very, very smallest part of your waist. And then you are going to want to measure your hips at the very largest point of your hips. And then what you're going to do, let me check, I'm going to grab my calculator to make sure I'm not giving you bad information. Then you're going to divide your hips by your waist. Okay? And if you are a woman and that number is smaller than 0.8, then you are a farmer. If it is higher than 0.8, you are a hunter. Let me double check that to make sure. I am correct. So if it is lower than 0.8, you are a farmer, and if it is higher than 0.8, you are a hunter. Now, if you're a man and you're doing your measurements, same thing, measure the smallest part of the waist, the largest part of the hips, divide the waist by the hips, and if that number is smaller than 0.9, then you are a farmer. If it is higher than 0.9, you are a hunter. Okay? So, with that in mind, when a farmer gains weight, they kind of keep their shape. So when a farmer gains weight, they gain weight all over. You know, like when I gain weight, my little face gets a little bigger, my boobs get a little bigger, my waist gets a little bigger, my hips get a little bigger. I still stay very curvy, and everything's just a little bigger. My arms are a little bigger, my legs are a little bigger, everything's a little bigger. Now, on a hunter, this is not the case. On a hunter, when a hunter gains weight, they gain all of their weight at their torso. Okay, so their waist goes from being their waist into being their waist. They lose their waist. So they start to look like an apple with little sticks sticking out. Like their little arms stay very thin, their little legs stay very thin, but their body becomes almost barrel chested and round. Okay, so if you think of it, a farmer would have more of an hourglass or a pear shape, and a hunter would have more of an apple shape. Okay, and at their healthy weights, the hunters are the very long, lean body types, whereas the farmers are the more muscular type of body. So even if you think of yourself when you were a little kid, it's probably easier to figure out what your natural body type was if you just think about what was your childhood body like. Okay, so my childhood body, I was a little chubby kid, and I was like little chubby all over kid, right? So that was my natural thought, that was my natural shape, is very farmer like. My sister, who is very, very beautiful, and she follows after my dad's side of the family, she is definitely a hunter. And to this day, I think she's as thin as she probably was when she was 17 years old. And she's got that very thin, lean body type. So she's definitely the hunter girl. So when you look at it, then it's very easy to discern how you should be eating, right? So if you're a farmer, again, you're going to eat the small meals. You're going to never go more than 4 hours without having a little something, something in your mouth. And as soon as you feel hungry, grab a little handful to put in your mouth. Either grab grains or proteins or fruits or vegetables. Um, Stay away from fatty foods. Fatty foods are a poison to us. They are what make us gain weight. Now, if you're a hunter, don't eat unless you're hungry. Keep yourself well hydrated. Stay away from sugary things or anything that breaks down into a sugar. So you even might want to investigate like high glycemic foods. If you Google it, you'll be able to find those high glycemic foods, which are just like poison to your system. Um, Try to limit alcohol. Alcohol breaks down immediately into sugar in your body, right? And um, and with you, you can eat protein, you can eat the fat, you can eat the fruits, the vegetables, but you really want to stay away from the sugar. Now, of course, I'm a naturopathic doctor and an herbalist, so I also made a little list of the supplements that Dr. Laponis recommended for the different types. Now, for the hunters, because the hunters are prone more towards cardiovascular disease, the the supplements that he recommended were the omega-3 essential fatty acids. He also recommended probiotics, um, magnesium, a good source of fiber, which my favorite is Nature's 3 fiber from Nature Sunshine. Um, he recommended for the hunters alpha lipoic acid, a good antioxidant, which I love, the super ORAC antioxidant. Chromium. Chromium is wonderful for helping keep your blood sugars level. Also using cinnamon. I actually, because I have some blood sugar issues, my blood sugar has a tendency to go low, whereas with a hunter it would have a tendency to go high. But cinnamon is really good for helping keep blood sugar level. So what I've been doing in the mornings is when I make my coffee, when I put the grinds in the little basket, I do like a few little shakes of cinnamon on top of the grinds before I brew my coffee. Gives the coffee a really nice flavor, and it helps to keep my sugar super balanced in the beginning of my day. So that might be something you'd like to try. Also for the hunters, he recommended CoQ10, particularly since a lot of the hunters have the cardiovascular disorders and they have issues with cholesterol. And because of that, especially if you are on a statin drug, you want to make sure you are on the CoQ10. He also recommended 5-HTP because the hunters have a tendency to crave sugar in the evening, and they also have a tendency to not sleep very well. And the 5-HTP is a precursor to serotonin. So it can take away those cravings for sweet as well as help your body sustain a nice and be able to get a good night's sleep. Now, for the farmers, these are the supplements that Dr. Laponis recommended for us. And the first one was vitamin D, which just kind of makes sense. The farmers were out in the sun 8 to 10 hours a day. So if you're not getting sun for at least 15 to 20 minutes a day, you want to make sure that you are on the vitamin D. Okay. He also recommended resveratrol, which there is a product from Nature Sunshine called Cardio Assurance, which is one of my favorite products. It has a resveratrol resveratrol in there, and it is loaded with antioxidants and things that are very good for us. He also recommended the curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric, and L-carnitine, because we have the problem with fat. And what L-carnitine does, L-carnitine almost acts as like the little key that opens the cell so that it can take in and utilize the fats effectively. So, just a little side note too, that I was thinking about when I was making up these lists is, since the hunters have a problem with the carbohydrates, and there may be some hunters in the world that are just not willing to give up all of their grains. Nature Sunshine does have a product that I would highly recommend called Carbo Grabbers. And what the Carbo Grabbers does is it has an amylase inhibitor. So it actually surrounds the carbs and keeps the body from being able to break them down to sugars, which that might be something that you would want to do if you want to still have a couple of little of those carbs, but not have to pay the price for them. And along the same line for the farmers, since our poison is fats, if you happen to be having, like a hard time getting all of your fats out of your diet, you might want to consider Nature Sunshine's Fat Grabbers, which is, again, like just a really awesome product, and it will keep your body from absorbing the fats that are not good for it. So in a nutshell, that is our hunter farmer metabolic type of eating. I hope that this has been helpful for you. If you love it, get Dr. Leponis's book. Again, the book is The Hunter Farmer Diet Solution by Dr. Mark Leponis. I'll pull it up in front of my face and so you can see it. I highly recommend it. It's a great book. It even has in there some great recipes for the farmers, great recipes for the hunters, really good ideas about things that you could be eating and adding in. And if you would like to order any of the products that I mentioned tonight, you can order those through Nature Sunshine. If you go to www.mysp.com/Ackroyd, my last name, Akroyd. If that will take you right into Nature Sunshine, and you can look up the different um, supplements that he recommended. I'm going to hold this up. Hopefully you can see that okay. And if not, you can feel free to leave me a comment below, and I will work on making a better version of this for you to see. Or you can always play it back and get the information there. So again, I hope that this was super helpful for you. I know that it has been for me. I will tell you, I've taken off 5 pounds without even suffering at all. And actually, I've been able to add in, I love grains, but I had taken almost all of the grains out of my diet after hearing about the wheat belly diet and this diet and that diet. And I felt very deprived. And now that I've started adding in the things that are just naturally good for my body, taking out the things that are naturally bad for my body, and eating in divine timing for my body type, the weight is just naturally falling off and peeling me back down to my healthy weight. So I hope that you have the same results. I'd love to hear how you do. Please leave comments. Let me know what you think. And if there's anything I can do to serve you, please reach out to me through my website at www.kellyackroyd.com. Thanks so much for spending this time with me. I hope it was beneficial, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks, and bye bye.